everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by training.
Could you use a quick tip daily? How about a tip that can impact your day? My name is Rafael. Join me as I bring you tips by experts around the world. These experts have shared their knowledge and wisdom with me and will directly share them with you. Make sure to subscribe, like, follow, and comment, and I would love for you to become part of the New Tip Daily community. Good morning, Laura. Thank you so much for joining me on actually not Coaching Call, but New Tip Daily. Wow. Communication mishaps, they happen, don't they?
Oh, they sure do. I talk to my clients about them every day.
Yeah, and I just had two of them, and you were witness to them. It's incredible. I love it. So the first one I want to talk about, because I think that this is exactly what we're talking about. And whether they were done on purpose or by accident or because I didn't pay attention. The first one is we were set up for 9:30 p.m., which is not true. It's 9:30 a.m. And then the other one, I hit the wrong button again, and it showed the wrong intro. And then I was able to correct both of them really quick. And so today you're going to help us with some tips on effective communication. And
Yes,
wow, I think you can help me so much. I'd love to hear him. I'd love to hear him.
Yeah, well, so I guess to put effective communication and why this is important to talk about, into context, first of all, is I work with business owners and senior leaders of organizations, and a quality of the business, the quality of an organization really is based on the quality of the relationships amongst people. And one of the big things that determines the quality of our relationships is the quality of our communication. And it just has such a huge impact, not just at the office, also at home, which is one of the reasons why I love having a conversation with people about communication and helping them improve their communication skills, is because the impact is so far reaching. It's something I've spent the last 25 years working on myself. It's something I got trained in myself because I didn't exactly grow up in a home with great communication, and I was at risk, and I was actively bringing the poor communication from growing up into my family once I got married, once I started my family. And I wanted it to be different. I wanted my relationships to be different. So that's when I really took on becoming a masterful at communication. And that's why I love having these conversations with people, because of the huge impact that it has. So one of the things where I begin when I'm teaching communication effectiveness is by talking about what I like to call a relationship GPS. Because when we first start learning about how to communicate effectively or differently, we have to understand that there's different communication skills to use at different times and depending on what's going on in the relationship at the time. So if we can understand first this idea of a relationship or a communication GPS, then we can know, and we know where we are, then this GPS can help us navigate those relationships more effectively, because there's different communication skills to use depending on where we are in that relationship, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Tons of sense. I love the GPS aspect because it's our guidance as to where we're heading, right?
Yes.
Sometimes without that GPS, we're just rambling on.
Well, yes, or we're bringing the wrong skills to the table. So that relationship GPS that I'm talking about, really, I describe it when I'm teaching people about it. I talk to them about what's called a behavior window. because we can get into conversation with people. We're relating to someone and we don't realize it, but we're actually very quickly making judgments about other people or assumptions about other people. And then we are communicating and relating based on our assumptions instead of the facts that are happening at the moment. And it's really the facts that we have to deal with. And so the behavior window is about getting us refocused on the behaviors that are happening between us and another person, and not our assumptions. And those behaviors are going to fall into different territories, if you will, in the window. And that's why I call it a GPS, because we can divide those windows into three different spaces that I call the no problem zone, which is kind of in the middle of the behavior window when everything in the relationship is hunky-dory and we're getting along just fine, great work is happening. But then there's two other sections in the window. And the top section of the window is when this person we're relating with, they have a problem of some kind. So, whether it's our kid coming home from school saying they got a problem with their friend, or whether it's one of our direct reports at the office struggling with a report or struggling with one of their colleagues, we're showing up as we're the leader in this circumstance, communicating with someone else who's owning a problem. They've got a challenge going on of some kind. So we have to bring specific skills to that situation that are different. And then there's a third zone in the behavior window where we own a problem. Something has happened, and there's a circumstance where our needs are not getting met, and we own a problem, and now we have to address that problem in some way. So there's different skills to bring to the table. So our relationship GPS helps us understand where in the behavior window we are, so that then we can choose the appropriate skills to use depending on what we're trying to navigate in the relationship.
Wow, that is powerful. Navigating where we are in a relationship. When we consider all of the different types of relationships we can have, how important is it having the right skills to communicate with that particular type of relationship, whether it's a friend, a loved one, a family member, a neighbor? How important is that?
How important? It's imperative, right? It makes all the difference, because again, the quality of that relationship, no matter who the relationship is with, is going to depend on the quality of our communication. And it's very easy for us to want to blame others, to point the finger, especially when there's a problem or a challenge going on. Well, it's his fault, or, they did something. And, the person we're relating with or communicating with, they might have really poor communication skills, and we can't control that, but we can always control ourselves. We can always work to bring our best communication skills to the table. And if we can do that, we can tremendously impact the quality of that relationship just by being great communicators ourselves, no matter what the other person is doing.
How do we differentiate when we feel like we're entitled to have someone follow our guide? We feel that they really need to do what we want them to do.
Oh, well, how do we deal with that? We have to change our mindset, because there is no such thing as making somebody do what we want them to do. We don't have, we just don't have that much control. And so we have to get out of that mindset. Now, we can have influence on people. That's different. But we can't make anybody do anything that they don't want to do. So what we have to do first off is switch our mindset. It's interesting that you asked this question, because I've actually got a client, and she's very much, she's a take charge kind of woman. She runs a very successful dental practice, and she just wants her staff to do it her way. And she gets really frustrated when it's not happening her way. And so we've done a lot. So first of all, I worked with her to change her mindset on that. And then, once her mindset starts to shift, then what we do is we move into having conversations around helping people. Where she can have influence is helping her team members understand what the impact of their behavior is having with their colleagues in the office, with clients. Because let's be honest, most of us are walking around the world with these blinders on, not really paying attention to how our behavior and the things we're doing are impacting others. We're just kind of heads down trying to get through our day. And so I find when people understand and get feedback about how they're showing up, how their behavior is impacting others, most people, when they understand that, something's up, they want to change their behavior. Once they understand it's having a negative impact on those around them, most people don't want to show up every day and be a jerk. Right. Once
For the most part.
For the most part, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. And once they understand, then they have an opportunity to choose changing their behavior. And they're then choosing versus a command and control where they're being told they have to do something different. So that's where a leader can have an impact, is by showing up and helping people understand the impact that their behavior is having on those around them or on the office environment, for example. And once they understand, they're more likely, it's not a guarantee, but they are more likely to be willing to change their behavior for the better. If they're not, then there's a different conversation to have at that point.
Right. You made me think when you said the blinders. I'm like thinking, horse. Okay, so a horse is going in a certain direction until it is pulled to a different direction. So how do we know if we should have the blinders on? At certain times we must have the blinders on, but then maybe we're getting pulled to go this way or go this way, or maybe look down or look up. So how do we differentiate which for our benefit? If we have a goal in mind, how to differentiate when we're being pulled in one direction? Should we go in that direction? Because sometimes it's not the right direction, even though we're being pulled that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's times when those blinders are helpful. We need to focus. Our world is full of distraction and, and notifications going off and the whole bit.
My gosh.
So yeah, it's sometimes we need to have the blinders on and be able to focus. But the blinders are really there and the focus is there. And the horse, to use your analogy, is running in a direction because they have a goal in mind. The goal is the finish line. And where we get pulled is when we're getting, we may be getting off goal. So if we're getting pulled in a particular direction, or, some cool idea has been presented to us or opportunity, and we're thinking, maybe I want to pursue that. We really have to take a minute to reconnect with our goals and objectives. Is this potential tangent or this thing where I'm getting pulled towards, is it aligned with the goals and objectives and ultimately the vision I have for myself or my business? If it is, then it might be worth looking into. And then we have to decide, well, is it worth looking into right now? Or is that something that, yes, that's something I want to look into, but might not be on the priority list right now. And so then we can maybe table it or what have you. So it really is about being clear about our goals and objectives. That's, again, something else I work with my clients on. We actually reverse engineer their businesses. And we start with, we create 2-page business plans together where they have their long-term 10-year vision, reverse engineered to 5 years, reverse engineered to 1 year, reverse engineered to each quarter of their year. And so that's what keeps them on track and focused throughout the year. And when those potential distractions show up and they're like, oh, I just found out about this cool thing. I think we need to, look at this together. I'm like, okay, let's look at that for a moment and let's see how that fits in context with your goals. If it does, great. Let's do a little more research. If it doesn't, then maybe we need to table that. Yeah. So hopefully that answers your question about the whole use of blinders.
I love it because we can, and because we are bombarded with so much diversion, if you will. You get emails, hey, I have the next best thing. If you're a coach, if you're this, if you're that, you're going to get 1,000 new clients and all this nonsense that's constantly, and people get attracted. Like, yeah, I need new clients. Oh yeah. And then all of a sudden they're going everywhere and their blinders are off, right? They lose the focus of what they wanted to do. If they wanted to serve a certain client, but they say, oh, you can help these guys too. Pardon my camera. You can help these guys too. And then what winds up happening is now you're serving more than one. Now you're serving another one. Now you're serving a different client. And all of a sudden your avatar that you started with is now a group of avatars, and you basically start serving them.
Yeah, those emails that come in, those get rich quick, you can do this fast. It's just so tempting because it really appeals to an element of our human nature, which is immediate gratification. And I was just having this conversation yesterday with one of my clients. He's like, why do I do this? I'm like, well, because, immediate gratification is so tempting. We get that little quick hit of dopamine and off we go, away to the races. We go. And real success happens with consistent action. Whether, you're working out in the gym, building that muscle, every day consistently, or you're building your business muscles and every day consistently, really is the consistency of our action. And that's not a quick fix kind of thing. So yeah, those distractions definitely tempting. They definitely appeal to a certain aspect of our human nature, but we have to really work hard sometimes to not, fall into those traps and always bring ourselves back to what is my goal? What is my objective? Where am I headed here? And keep ourselves focused on that piece. And that's where, a coach can be really helpful because it is so tempting. And by a coach understanding our big picture and what we're out to accomplish, they can continuously bring us back and get us refocused on that when those temptations show up.
I love it. I also want to talk about the muscle that we have to build for communication. I want to share this with you first. Let's take a look.
In a world where words shape destinies and connections forge futures, this November 22nd to the 24th, Speaking Prowess brings you the ultimate hands-on workshop. We have a lineup of some of the most influential communication experts in the industry. These are the voices that will guide you on a journey to enhance your ability to connect, influence, and succeed. Sifu Rafael, master instructor and founder of Speaking Prowess, blends communication and leadership to help you reach your full potential. Dr. Oliver T. Reed, the international multi-best-selling author and motivational speaker, known as the Writing Coach, will help you craft your messages with precision. Jose Escobar, a nationally recognized speaker and leader, will guide you in mastering personal development and leadership skills. This is more than just an event. It's a game-changing, skill-building experience. Walk away with communication prowess that transforms your personal and professional life. Speaking Prowess, where communication becomes your superpower. Reserve your seat now.
I like the smile you got going on over there. So
I love how it ended. Communication is your superpower. It's just fantastic because it is a superpower. And our words are so important in how we use them. So I think that that's going to be a brilliant weekend.
Absolutely. So I wanted to talk to you about building that muscle, right? That communication muscle, if you will. And how often should we work on our communication skills?
Every day.
Every day, every morning, every evening, every afternoon.
Every conversation we have
It's
is an
beautiful.
opportunity to practice our communication skills and be really thoughtful about our communication. It's so we just lots of people listen to respond as
Mhm.
what am I going to say next versus really listen to the person that we're relating with.
Mm.
And we forget how powerful listening and even silence is in our communication. So because we're just kind of the mind is just going and we just want to respond next. So every single conversation we have is an opportunity to use skills like iMessages, to use our listening skills, to use, silence, to be thoughtful about how we want to respond, and to make sure that we're responding to someone based on the facts in the relationship and the situation versus our story or assumption
Mm.
about the facts, and be really accountable with our language as well. So yeah, how often should we be practicing? Every conversation we have is an opportunity to practice.
I love it. I love it. And you brought up so many incredibly important aspects of communication about listening, waiting to actually listen, not just to respond, right? Because a
Mhm.
lot of people, they're like, oh, when are they done? So I can say my piece
Yes.
instead of, right. And that's usually what you get a lot.
Mhm.
But also you talked about the silence aspect, and
Mhm.
that is a powerful tool that
Mhm.
so many people lack. And sometimes taking that gap in a conversation when someone asks you a question, not to respond immediately with the first things that pop into your head, but
Mhm.
to actually think about what you
Yes.
want to say.
Yes.
I love one of my mentors. He is brilliant. And anytime I ask him a question, I have to wait. I literally have to wait. And it just shows that he's not just saying anything at the top of his head.
Mhm.
He's truly looking for the best possible answer he can give me so I can get the most out of his response.
Mhm.
And we're in a society where we want everything now. Give it to me
Uh-huh.
now. I want to
In
know now. I
instant
ask you,
everything.
why are you waiting so long to give me an answer? And a lot of the times I think as a society, we feel obligated to respond quickly.
Mhm.
So and I think that's one of my tips to everybody is just to assess the question
Mhm.
first and
Yes.
don't just respond to respond.
I call it practice the pause.
Mm,
And yes, it's super powerful. Like you were role modeling it just in our conversation right now. You were taking your time. You weren't rushing through what you were sharing. There were brief pauses in your communication. And I was actually like eagerly waiting for the next thing you were going to say. I was actually engaged. I felt myself engaging a little bit more because you were using that pause, which was sending me a message like, oh, the next thing he's going to say is really important.
mm.
And I wanted to hear it. So yes, practicing that pause is super powerful tool in our communication that we forget about.
Yeah, we do. We do definitely forget about sometimes the context. And you talked about storytelling also. And have you ever had someone start a story, never end it, pick up a different story, and then pick up a third story and sometimes a fourth story, and they never end the first story? I was very guilty of that myself. And then I said, wait a minute, but in my head, I finished it. In
Hmm.
my head, I know the ending. I don't have to tell you that. But wait a minute, you don't know that. So
Yes.
sometimes we need to like if I'm going to tell you a story about John or Mary or me or anything else, let me give you, as if I was telling you, either a quick story, which most people want to hear. They don't want to hear a long, drawn out thing,
Yes.
but it's also the context behind it. Why am I even telling you this story? Does it even have to do it with the conversation we're having, or is it just because it came to the top of my head?
Or is filling space. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, our self-talk can be so loud sometimes that, yes, we can get into the story and we think we've told it all, but we're still inside our head and we forget people can't read our minds. So absolutely, that happens. And context is everything. We just want to fill the air sometimes, and so get into our stories. And people use stories for all kinds of different reasons. Sometimes those stories are a deflection because maybe the conversation that's happening at the time feels threatening in some way or difficult in some way. And so we just want to share a bunch of stories to fill airspace and deflect the conversation in a bunch of different directions. I've definitely had that happen at times. And certainly as the coach in that situation, I have to, sometimes put up the stop sign and have the person stop, and I have to say, wait a minute, we were focusing on this piece. Let's circle back and finish this piece before we go on to a bunch of other tangents. So yeah, stories show up in our communication and our relationships in a whole variety of ways.
They do. It's very interesting when you talk about someone definitely going off tangent. One of my managers got a phone call, and I was in the room, and I kind of like heard them and start talking, and it was a 15, 20-minute conversation. I said, well, who was that? And they told me, and I said, what'd they say? Here's the funny part. They said nothing. I said, but you were talking to them for a long time, and I barely heard you talk, and they were talking for a long time. I said, so what did they say? They said, nothing. I said, so they called to tell you nothing? Basically, that's what they said. I said, so what did you get out of that? They just wanted to talk and hear themselves. I said, oh, so did you help them? I guess I did because I listened. I said, oh, thank you for listening.
Well, absolutely. There are people who need to process out loud, right? There's the extroverts and the introverts of the world. Extroverts tend to be external processors, and introverts tend to be internal processors. And I realize I'm overgeneralizing, but that's kind of a bit of a rule of thumb. And so that actually circles back to that relationship GPS I was referring to earlier, is that sometimes people have a challenge and they're trying to sort it out. And by showing up, one of the tools, communication tools or skills that we can use in our relationship GPS is when someone else owns a problem or has a challenge, our first tool is listening. Just listen. Let them, because most people actually have the ability to solve their own problems. We don't have to fix things for them. Leaders don't have to be the fixers all the time. I mean, I get that they're take charge kind of people and they're used to solving problems, but they need to let their people solve their own problems. Otherwise, they make their people dependent on them, and then they're complaining that their people are always coming to them. So showing up as a listener, let the person talk it out if that's what they need to do, and speak it out loud. They'll often come to their own solution. So that's a great example of what was probably happening in that conversation. The person just needed to process. The person that you were with in the room showed up as the listener and was a huge help to that person. So listening is a super powerful communication skill.
Right. No, without a doubt. And so many people don't know how to practice that. And they get annoyed when someone else is talking because they're looking to tell their own story.
Yes.
One of the things that always is very intriguing to me is when someone engages you in a conversation that you don't want to have, or it's totally out of place.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how I would respond to that. And it's for me, it's always, this is not a conversation I'm comfortable with, or this is not a conversation that I'm willing to go into, or
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I want to have this conversation right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right. What are your takeaways on that?
I think that's really appropriate and is the demonstration of having good boundaries. Uh, I had a colleague a few years back, and he's one of those extroverts who just wants to think out loud. And he would call me up, and as soon as I said hello, off he went. Whatever story he wanted to share, or whatever verbal, mental diarrhea he had going on that day. And he forgot to ask, "Oh, are you in the middle of something?" Which often I was. And I wanted to be present to him. He was, important colleague to me, but I was he was interrupting something that I was focusing on in that moment. So it came a point where I had to tell him, you know what, when you call, can you please first ask me first if I'm actually in the middle of something? Because I want to be responsive to you. I don't want to just send you to voicemail all the time. And sometimes I'm in the middle of something and can't be present to whatever you want to share with me in the moment. So please, give me, just check in with me. Can I have this conversation? If I can, I will absolutely be present to you. If I can't in that moment, then we can reschedule or set a time to have that conversation. So I think the examples you shared are just examples of having good boundaries. And we're totally allowed to have those.
Yeah. It's very interesting when you just shared an incredible tip for so many people. Just don't answer.
Well,
Just don't answer,
we can
right?
do that. Yes.
One of the things that I am very aware of people's time. One of the things I usually do before I call them, and I usually don't just call somebody out of the blue, I will text them first and ask the question, are you free to talk?
Mm-hmm.
If not now, tell me when.
Yes.
And I think that is setting the boundaries as well, because if I'm not going to have their undivided attention and I'm interrupting, then it's going to be a waste of my time.
Yes. And the other person's probably going to be resentful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
we have
Laura,
tools
if
like
I
that.
ever text you, it's because I want to talk to you first. So just know that I'm never going to just call you, right? And a lot of times, I'll even do that with my family members.
Mm-hmm.
I'll text them
Mm-hmm.
because you never know what somebody may be in the middle of. I've been on a ladder. I like climbing. I've been on a ladder, and I get these phone calls, and I don't answer, and then they call again, and I don't answer, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm on the ladder. I hope I don't drop the phone. This must be important. I pick up the phone, and they're like, "Hey, what you doing? How you doing? What's going on?" I'm like, I didn't answer because I'm a ladder and I'm up high and so forth. They're like, "Oh, I didn't know that."
Mm-hmm.
Of course you didn't know that, but if I didn't answer the first time, get an idea
Mm-hmm.
that I'm not available right now.
Yes.
But not everybody gets that. So it's important that we do set those boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, and to circle back to something we were talking about earlier, we do live in this instant everything society, and I think we put pressure on ourselves. Oh, we got to answer the phone there, kind of thing. And we don't. We're not going to damage a relationship by setting a boundary.
Mhm.
So I have, my clients are business people, and being responsive is important, but they don't have to be reactive. So I actually have some of my clients use their voicemail very strategically, and they actually leave a message on their voicemail to say, "Thanks for calling. I check my voicemail at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. each day. Please leave your message and know that I will get your message at that time and will respond accordingly." so that
Love
they
it.
don't have to be interrupting their day answering the phone. They set a boundary right inside their voicemail. And I get some pushback at times. People are like, oh, I can't do that. But when they actually give it a go, they're like, oh my gosh, I got my day back. I'm in charge of my day again, instead of my day being in charge of me. And they love it. So we have tools at our disposal that we can do those kinds of things. And it will actually improve our relationships because we're now using voicemail as our way of communicating. And I think it works great.
Yeah, it does. Laura, I got to tell you, you and I, we're very much on the same wavelength, if you will. And I think I can talk to you about not only this, but so many different subjects for such a long time. What I'd love to, and I would love to have you on my other shows as we've discussed, but what I would love for you to do right now is I'm going to give you a little window to tell my audience how they can reach you. I'm going to put your website across the screen right now. Tell us a little bit about how you help people. So it's a little commercial for you. So go for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. So basically, I help people be the best that they can be. And so mostly that is with small business owners and C-level executives, helping them, move forward faster, either in their business or in their leadership. So the best way people can find me is at the website that's listed there. There's a whole bunch of freebies on my website. There's a free stuff page, and there's an ebook there specifically about communication. There's an ebook there that they can download about giving effective feedback, about business planning. There's a bunch of tools there because I always love to show up and give value first. So people could come to the website, check out the ebooks, and if they want to have a conversation with me directly, there's a tab there and some links there right on my site where they can book a session with me. Always happy to have a conversation with people, whether it's about their communication style and how it's impacting their leadership, or whether it's business planning, or even a personal matter, because I do have a counseling background before I became a coach. And so I have all kinds of interesting conversations with my clients, and I'm always happy to have a conversation with someone. So if they want to connect, show up to my website, and it'll be easy to do so.
Love it. Love it. Yes. Show up to our website. I got to tell you, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. It really meant a lot that you were here with me. And we did have a little bit of communication effectiveness on my end that was not effective. But here's the cool thing, right? We were able to shift and make it correct. And a lot of people don't always do that. They think because they made a mistake that they want to hide it under the carpet instead of saying, hey, you know what? Be honest. I made a mistake. That's part of communication as well, right? So yes, people, I made a mistake. I made 2 of them today. And guess what? The day's not over. I'm going to make so many more. But I own my mistakes. And I think that's another tip that we should all do, even in communication. We sometimes will say the wrong thing.
Yeah. And we get freaked out and we get scared and worried about how is this person, going to view us now. But yes, we all make mistakes. And so just owning it, acknowledging it actually gets us past it much faster. Like you said, we just shifted really quick, done and forgotten, and move on, kind of thing. So I know I used to be an avoider of acknowledging my mistakes in the past, wanted to show up with this good impression and look perfect. And it's like, none of us are perfect. It's better off to just acknowledge it, own it. And I talk to my clients about, when we mess up, we fess up and we dress up. Acknowledge it and fix it and move on.
Wow. So many tips on today's show. If you're watching, thank you. If you're going to watch this on the replay, hit replay hashtag, right? And I want you to connect with me, connect with Laura. And if you're in the New York area, come to our incredible event, November 22nd through the 24th. And guess what? I have people who are not in the New York area who are flying in or driving in. Some people are even considering taking the train. So wherever you are in the world, come join us. Thank you, Laura. It's
My
been
pleasure.
incredible.
Well,
Just hang
thanks
on
for
for a
having me.
second.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody, have yourself an amazing rest of your day.